Hi. Hi, Just.
Hey, Salma. Hi, how are you?
Fine.
Huh?
Fine. And you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
We're at the end of the year. Hi.
Yeah, hey, hi. Yeah, we are moving right to the end of the year.
How are you?
Oh,
Fine.
I hear an echo now.
Okay. Fine. And you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Of the year. Hi. Let me stop the YouTube.
Yeah, hey, hi.
We are in a loop.
Yes.
I will take a refresh of my tea. Then I will be back. I'm back. So, I think you'll mute, Salma.
True.
So let's also make enough questions or have questions at the end, right?
Okay. Yeah, sure. What's your estimation about the time for your presentation?
Oh, at least similar as last time, I think.
Okay, perfect. And then we'll go ahead to the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, 4 minutes to go and then we start. So are you planning some days off at the end of this year?
Yeah, so I think, no, I will take the last 2 weeks of the year off. Yeah.
Ah, that's perfect. Okay.
Yeah. At a certain moment, you have to say enough is enough, right?
Yeah, right. This is the perfect period, I think, to say enough.
Yeah.
Because you know that.
Yeah, and we go into a major lockdown today or tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, this is just the cases are exploding. I think we can even say we are on the third wave now. And the government is very worried because the season of...
Please remind me, where are you?
I'm in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, okay.
So
Yeah.
Germany is going into a major lockdown till the mid of Jan. France already is, Belgium is, and we are quite of loose, right? But the numbers are peaking again, dramatically. So there's now a crisis, and I think they will announce a major lockdown. Yeah, and also this New Year, right? Even an evening clock during New Year, which that's quite heavy in this space. Yeah. So let's see how it will develop. Yeah, but this is not good.
But in France, they have lightened a little bit the lockdown.
Yeah.
They now, the shops are open again, etc. Because it's the end of the year and just to not kill.
Yeah.
The shops.
But here, here they think that Black Friday because all the shops were just packed. And now we see 2 weeks later that there are a lot of new cases, and they think it has to do with that shopping behavior during Black Friday. And now we move into the real winter, and then the virus even more quicker to spread.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we will see, but I will let you know what's happening.
That's too bad.
Yeah, so I will share my screen. I think that's, oh, you need to enable me, Salma.
Oh yeah, please. Sorry. Is it okay now? I'm waiting for a call from.
So how many people do we already have in the call?
Connected right now?
Yeah.
Let me check. There are 12 right now.
Oh, that's not that many.
Actually, they join when the call is on. Okay. Okay, so let's start.
Okay.
So hi everyone, we're so happy to have you after the weekend. It's so the 14th of December. Okay, go. I'll start again. So hi everyone, we're so happy to have you. Hi Just.
Hey, Salma.
Happy to have you back. This is our second time. So here we go again for an ins and out ecosystem building session. So just for a quick reminder, this program is designed and built with by Smart Capital in partnership with Innovi EU for Innovation with Expertise France. So thanks for all the help and support. So today we are thrilled to have Joost Bergen. So this is the second time and we're very glad to have you again. And Joost has introduced, and I introduced you briefly again. So you're one of the founders of Startup Bootcamp, investor, entrepreneur, mentor, and coach. Today we will be covering the topic of all the COVID can situation that we're going through. So the startup support organizations also have been hit by this crisis, and in order to maintain their activities and to have the impact they have, also they are due to reinvent themselves and to create new models more adapted and compliant to this new normal. And maybe with you, Just, we can see some of the opportunities through that crisis. So the floor is yours. I'll not take more time for the audience and from you, Just.
Yeah.
So thank you again for being with us.
Salma, thank you for having me. So good afternoon, everyone. And if you're still in the morning time zone, good morning. So yes, indeed. Yeah. So we are in the middle of a crisis, right? And when you're in the middle of the crisis, you never know how it will end and what it will mean post-crisis. But what we see, of course, we see several things happening in the world. And of course, this is different per region, but nevertheless, we also see many, many similarities. And one, I think, major similarity is that currently we are very much restricted in travel. And therefore, we see a huge demand of digitalization, like a session we have today, in all industries, right, in all aspects of society. So first of all, I would like to do a short introduction. So it is predicted that 40% of enterprises will no longer exist, right, in 50 years time or so. So I think that's an important thing to understand when we look at the current ecosystems of companies in all industries. And what we also very clearly see is that technology is eating every industry. And so technology, when you look at the biggest technology companies, they are now leading the league tables of largest companies, and they moved actually the let's say the normal brick and mortar companies downwards. And technology companies, of course, are hugely scalable, right? And that scalability, that's I think one of the elements which makes technology so interesting, but also interesting to look at. And of course, this is different. The technology firm is different than a firm that produce something or provide services based on transform raw materials into end products, or in providing service based on hours, right? And when you look at technology firms, so we had in the end of 2019, we had Aramco went into an IPO. At that moment, Aramco had a valuation of more than 2 trillion, which is 2,000 billion US. And now we see that Apple has exceeded that last quarter, also reaching a total market capitalization of 2 trillion. When you look at these numbers totally over the last couple of years, we see a huge rapid growth of their valuation, and now they're almost close to 7 trillion, I have to make the numbers right, 7 trillion in total market cap. When we compare it with different numbers, they are not comparable, but just have a look at this overview, where you see the GDP of Japan is almost 5.5 trillion, India is 10 trillion. So put the numbers a little bit in perspective. It is differently, but nevertheless, it is also how what the value is, what the value investors sees to these companies in comparison to, of course, the income of countries, which is just massive. And what we see as well, we see that now the first generation is raised by a completely connected world, right? A completely connected society. And of course, that will change a lot, not only this generation, but also generations to come. And these generations will become older, will become buyers, will become consumers, and will become decision makers. So that connecting world, the Internet of Things, everything is connected, of course, will change the society as we know it today. And that change of our very civilization, I think we're in the middle of that. And we see also that Corona, COVID-19, is accelerating that digitalization and as well in our societies. And I think we see that around ourselves every day. It also means that business models very clearly become under pressure. And because it comes under pressure, the question is this business model even a sustainable business model going forward? Is this the way to stay relevant as an organization for the future, for our selected clients, but also our new clients for the future? And this whole new generations also provide a new lifestyle. I will very often talk about the millennium lifestyle. That's a different way of how consumers demand what they demand actually from producers, from service providers. And we see that switching consumer behavior rapidly changing. And for companies, this is the real quest, how to be relevant for this new customer demand. So we're looking at complete new business models. How can we still attract our clients in a way that's sustainable, not only for us as an organization, but very importantly also sustainable for the environment. We have to be good for our environment as well. And that, of course, is also a big change when we compare that with 10, 15, or even 20 years ago, when shareholders' value was the only thing to look at. And now we have coronavirus, and according to Sequoia, the largest venture capitalist in the world, really said that this coronavirus is a black swan, and it was back in March. And then the definition of a black swan is an unpredictable or unforeseen event, typically one with extreme consequences. And I think nowadays we see how extreme the consequences are. And I was in a call the other week with people from Hong Kong. There they speak already about the fourth wave. In my own country, I live in Amsterdam, we now witness probably the third wave. We will go into a very strict lockdown till the mid of January, probably. Our government is now in crisis to discuss that and to decide on that. So we see very extreme consequences due to the coronavirus. It has to do with health, right? And that's very fundamental, of course, in our societies. But nevertheless, everything was changing around us. We need to reinvent ourselves. And I think one factor is for certain, there will be continuously change, and we need to reinvent ourselves continuously, right? And we need to keep dreams and aspirations. I think that's important. So let's see it from the positive, bright side of life, and let's make the best out of it. And that's my first message I want to give to you. So my name is Joost Bergen, and Salma already introduced me, but here are a few other bullets, what I do. And what I will share with you today is my own experience of the last, of course, of the last years, but particularly also in the last period of the COVID-19 pandemic, and what the impact that has on let's say our own organization, Rainmaking Startup Bootcamp, but also particularly on other startup support organizations like yourself, and what we see, and also what the opportunities are. So I think there are opportunities, and there is room for everyone. And I think we should look how we can make the total cake bigger instead of competing on a small piece or a small cake. And I think that the need for support organization is growing, and I will show you why I think so. So, but first of all, welcome to the Startup Bootcamp ecosystem, and we are one of the top 5 global accelerators or startup support organizations, and we have a very global network. We run 22 different programs on a yearly basis, and we do that with backup from a lot of companies and corporates as well. So we do that from our 2 different names, Rainmaking Innovation and Startup Bootcamp, and we started actually already in 2006 on this whole journey. And we work from our corporate innovation side with a lot of different large companies together, and we help them actually in their own innovation journey. Many of these companies you see on the slide do have a strategic line in their strategy on innovation. Very often the question is, how do I really operationalize that innovation within our organization? How do I create an innovative culture, capacity, but also how do I get new technology, new ideas, new culture within my own organization? And startups and technology firms are very important to achieve that. When we look at the other side of our own equation, that's the Startup Bootcamp, which is the startup support organization. And we run programs, as said. We have 900 plus startups in portfolio and scaled. We work with partners, because partners are very important for the startups to validate the value propositions, do a proof of concept with them, or even MVPs, and even go into commercial contracts. Another point, it's very important for all the startups, of course, to raise capital, because the runway is limited, and the POCs and pilots are extremely important for them to grow. And we do this on industry specific teams. So initially we did it across industries, right? We had a program and we had many different companies from many different industries, but very quickly we saw to be relevant as an accelerator and a startup support organization, you need to keep focus, right? And that focus is important because it also shows credibility to that industry, right? And I think myself, I'm in the fintech space a lot. So I'm also the fintech lead. And yeah, you have to know the industry and also understand the pain points and also help the startups and navigate through that whole industry. So I think team programs is very important. And as I said previous time, we do that very focused to scale basically the startups. And what we say to the startups, what you do with us in this 4-month program, you will normally do as a startup in 2 years, right? So we give almost a year and a half back to you. So you accelerate your business, you accelerate all the variables basically. And to do that, you still have enough runway to move towards commercial contracts with prospect clients. So the scaling of the business is very important, and also make the right connections to mentors, but also the right connection to future clients and investors. These all 3 areas are extremely important for startups. That's their objective, and for us as support centers, that's what we should provide. So when I look at our own business, I see that we help corporate in their innovation. I always want to say this is almost stealth mode, right? Because a corporate doesn't want to know others what they are working on, right? That's on the one hand side. On the other hand side, we have, let's say, the community-driven programs open in the public, where we help startups to accelerate and startups to grow their own business. And of course, they need corporates in that journey. So what I said before, so for corporate innovation centers or corporates as such, they need to increase innovative culture. They bring innovation from the outside to the inside. And that's also where you already see a great bridge between startups and that whole startup community towards large companies. And a lot of companies also see startups as a way to really get new technology into their own organization, to improve their own processes, and also to bring new services, or even move towards new business models themselves. And that's what we call the demand-driven startup collaboration, right? So a lot of companies, they have issues, they have problems they would like to innovate on, and you can work with startups where you select the startups carefully and you match them together, and the startups can work with these corporates. And that's not an easy task, because large companies, they don't think like startups. Startups don't think like large companies. A lot of startups don't understand when you're selling to banks, it takes a year and a half, right, to sell to a bank. But that's how it works, right? It takes time to sell to large organizations. And that's the service we provide, and help them to understand it, but also to see ways to accelerate that. As a startup support organization, of course, we support talent, we support entrepreneurship, and we really support the startups in that journey, from a good idea towards a blossoming company. And that whole matchmaking between corporates, investors, and mentors is extremely important, as I said. And actually what you do as startup support organization, what we do as Startup Bootcamp, is really building ecosystems, connecting everyone who has an interest in that particular vertical or industry, and helping the startups to grow in that whole ecosystem. And that ecosystem is not there for just the duration of the program, but actually should stay there forever, right? And of course, that's I think is the powerful of building ecosystems as a startup support organization, and really connect everyone, and increase the industry for all actors involved. And here's a Harvard Business Review article where they also mentioned that when you want to boost innovation as a large organization, partner with a startup, very clearly. So for May 27 this year. And what they say, you have identified the most valuable problems in your own organization to solve. Then make potential partners, so that can be SSOs or startups directly, of the problem and match then the two, right? And they have to collaborate. And that's a very successful process to boost innovation. And when I look at the actors, right, as an S&O, you of course you work with the startups and the scale-ups, but it's also very much about talent and entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial mindset, because you need certain people that can drive such an organization. And of course, we need corporates and organization where the companies, the talented people can work with to be successful, because you can only be successful when you do when you validate your value proposition, when you test it, and you get traction. And with traction, I mean companies are going to use it and customers are going to use it, right? And when companies are using it, your credibility will increase and you are able to sell to others, right? So that first, that second, that third client, of course, is always very important. I think that's what an SSO and also what we do ourselves, it's what we can bring, help that really that acceleration. But when you look at corporates, and this is, I think, is another important angle which we should support as an SSO, is that large organizations, they have to run the company today, but they also need to build the company for the future. And certain departments within large organizations are simply not fit to handle innovation. And that's the execution engine, because every large organization, they have to provide the services every day to their client base. That is an ongoing process. And they have to report on their activities on a weekly, at least monthly, quarterly, annual basis. And we have the budget, right? And next year we have to make the budget. And that's the process we are in as an execution engine. So we don't really have room or in our minds, in our organization, to really look at innovation. So that should be separated. And very often you have more like an exploration engine. Very often also you see that in large organizations, which is called innovation centers or innovation hubs, right? Where free-minded people not involved in the execution, understand the execution, but not involved in the current execution, are looking for ways how to improve their own organization and collaborate with outside bodies like startups, but also like SSOs. And this exploration engine will feed constantly the execution engine with new ideas and new value propositions. And again, we see here also a collaboration between execution and exploration, and look at exploration as an innovation center of a large organization. And of course, that are the guys and girls we have to work together with as an SSO. So the demand-driven corporate startup collaboration approach, I see that as a cornerstone for a successful growth and innovation strategy for companies. So as an SSO, we need to understand what our companies and organizations and our vertical we work, what they are looking for. And on that way, we can also select and even pivot certain companies in a direction to become successful. So I already said, right, so the corporates are really looking how to collaborate with startups. As an SSO, we have to look at what I said already, support talent, entrepreneurship, but also in the diaspora, right? I think that's also very important for many countries. The diaspora, I think, is a very rich line towards the rest of the world, and it can bring a lot of talent and entrepreneurship back into the country. And I think then fourthly is the whole matchmaking. We have to matchmake these companies, these talented entrepreneurs, with mentors, with companies who have a demand-driven startup collaboration approach, and of course with financiers. We have to make these companies finance ready. And you can do the business development and the acceleration, but you also need very much the finance paragraph. We need to help them how to build a the finance model, and also look at investors who have a certain interest in certain specific companies. So again, we also as an SSO, we need to understand what the investors are looking for, right? What type of assets do they want to invest in? And I think this is basically provide the overview of the different actors, right? So, and also with the objective. So corporates need to innovate, right? We want to help the startups. The startups also need to grow. Investors are looking constantly for deal flow because they get capital in and the capital has to work. to make at the end of the ride a certain return on investments, and mentors seeking for interesting journeys, right? We also need to connect them, and they do this basically for free initially, but we have to feed them, and they have to be energized, right, to be involved in certain journeys with startups. And what I said, I think very important to keep it per industry. And next to the industries, I think we have to differentiate between industries and technology. So I think blockchain is an interesting piece of technology, particularly connecting parties which are naturally not trusted towards each other. So how does it work in supply chain? In supply chain, we see a lot of areas where blockchain is being adapted. Data analytics, another technology, right, where based on huge amount of data, we can find certain trends, and trends we normally wouldn't have seen when we're just looking at that as an individual. So the data analytics, but also these skills are very important. Privacy is getting more and more important. We also see it now in the current pandemic, that privacy is an important aspect, and many countries in the European Union, we have this high privacy regulations as well implemented. And cybersecurity. As we work with technology, which is scalable, we would like to, as a startup, would like to collaborate with large organizations. Our cybersecurity need to be on a certain minimal level, right? And we all know we are under attack, but we need to protect the technology, but also the data the technology absorbs, right? Because we don't want to have data leakage. And that brings me to another very important point, and I believe every SSO should look at this very carefully, because I believe the founding team of startups are mostly important. And the founders are also the real assets of a startup. And as an investor, you don't really invest in a company, you invest in the founding team, in individuals, right? And the individuals need to be credible. They need to be trustworthy, right? And what, as an investor, when you look at an accelerator program, you look at the different teams and you think, okay, which teams give me the most trustworthiness? Which team is most credible? Which team can really bring this idea to blossom? And I think that's why the team is so important. And you can't change the team, but you can't change your value proposition or an idea. You can pivot that, right? And that's also the whole iterative process, what you do when you test your proposition with prospect clients. You constantly see, okay, with an iterative process, how should I change, right? And when you have a strong team, this team can take care of this. And we have to select, I think, very much though on these teams. So what we very often do, we make personal profiles of the individuals, but also the total profile of the team. And the individuals need to strengthen, supplement, complement each other, right? So you need different personal profiles. And of course, you need the knowledge of the industry as well. It is very rough if you're great in technology and you want to sell something in industry you don't know. You need a skill set, you need an understanding of the industry specifics. And that can also be a mentor, right? Or that can be and how you bring in on the later stage. But that team, I want to say, is extremely important, and so important that we say team is a capital, and team, the second important point is also team, and thirdly is also the team. And also, I think from that perspective, you should not look at single founding companies, but because a single founder doesn't have his peers around him that can complement him or her. So I think the team is very important, and we should also look into that very carefully. At least that's what we do, but I think I also advise other accelerators to do that as well. So when you look at SSOs like ourselves, we are international. We run many programs, but also local SSOs. We have a lot of face-to-face meetings, right? We select companies as very often face-to-face. We scout them, we select them. We have sessions whereby we introduce them to the ecosystem. We have sessions to meet and match with mentors. And everything is a face-to-face meeting, right? And that was all working great, and it was also very energetic and great to meet a lot of new people. But then COVID came. And of course, it has a quite dramatic impact on what we have done and what we have good at. And also what was, let's say, the default way of working in our industry. Because suddenly we had a huge health problem globally, actually, right? People have to work from home. There are a lot of restrictions. Business models suddenly changed rapidly, right? Because also our own business model, right? As an accelerator, suddenly we have to work with social distance. And all of these aspects actually asked or bring a lot of disruptions, but also require ourselves to reinvent ourselves. And that's what I would like to talk about in the second part of my presentation. And I will take you back one step. So this is a very interesting piece of research. And what you see here is that disruptions or crises. So we had the dot-com bubble in the early of the millennium, right? We had the global financial crisis, let's say 11, 12 years ago. And both of these crises actually bring a lot of uncertainty, bring a lot of unemployment. But what we also see is when there is such a crisis, we see suddenly unemployment is increasing and people start to set up their own companies. Right? So here from the dot-com crisis, we see a few very big companies that have been founded at that time. Here, Salesforce, Tesla, Facebook, SpaceX, right? So a lot of companies that suddenly were popping up in that moment. When we look now at the global financial crisis 10 years ago, we see companies like Airbnb, Slack, Uber, and these are now multi-billion companies. So I want to say the crisis also helps, of course, to trigger entrepreneurship, individuals that team together with their founding team and set up a company and move that company towards a large organization. And I think that's what we see here. And we all know what happens with Slack. Slack was bought by Salesforce, was again one of the companies that was growing after the dot-com crisis. Airbnb last week went IPO and this now has a valuation of more than 85 billion US. So that's only in 10 years time. Now, I've showed you the graph already from the other tech firms, but this is what we see. And of course, it's on the big scale. These are the unicorns, but there are many, many other smaller companies that have made a similar ride as these unicorn ones. So I think we can say that two things that make business faster is technology and data. We have a lot of technology. The question is, how do you implement technology wisely? And we have a lot of data. The question is, do we have the right data? And can the data really help us to guide us towards the future? And again, COVID-19, of course, has made a lot of data sets obsolete. Because we had a lot of data sets from the past, and these data sets help us to guide us towards the future. But the whole pandemic and what it triggers in customer demand, what it triggers in sales, what it triggers in supplies, was from the moment actually it exploded, right? These data sets couldn't help us any further. And I think that's also important to understand. Data sets are as good as long as the data sets can help us to predict the future. And that's the case we don't see at the moment. Again, when we look also at here, this is an interesting slide from CB Insight. I borrowed that from them. So the global venture capital deals, right? And we see here in Q1 2020 a huge decline when the World Health Organization declares COVID as a public and international emergency. And we already saw in Q2 a very soft recovery, right? And this slide is actually from Q1, so this was still a prediction. When we compare that to the financial crisis here on September 15, 2008, Lehman files Chapter 11 and bankruptcy, we had three quarters in a row where actually the VC investments towards companies was declining, has changed dramatically. And after 3 months only, we saw a rapid growth, right? Although with a dip in the quarter thereafter. And what we see, you see another deal. This is VCs and also CVCs, as a corporate venture capitalist funds. We see enormous decline here in numbers of deals actually in Q1 2020. And here, this is specifically fintech. So I have some data on the fintech. Again, we see here that the deal size has declined dramatically in 2020 onwards, and it's even till Q3 this year. And we see a few mega rounds. Mega rounds to mean more than 100 million, and we see there was a decline over 4 quarters. And after Q1, after the first wave of the pandemic, we saw an increase of these mega rounds in numbers and also an average deal size. But I think what's interesting here, when you look at up till Q3 2020, and again, this is in general, so all deals, not particularly fintech, but different industries, the particular seed and angel investment has increased since Q2 2020. So we see a slow recovery, right? And you see still some traction, but you see here slow decline still in A till C type of funding. But that is encouraging. I think this is good for us to see, and it's also backed up by this graph, where we see VC-backed fintech deals in Q3 2019 up till Q3 2020. We see on average a decline in North America and Asia. We see since Q2, luckily enough, a little increase in Europe. But I think what is fascinating is the huge increase since Q1, particularly in Africa and South America. And these are what I consider as emerging markets, right? Developing countries. And I think it's great that we see a huge increase of fintech-backed VC deals. And even though we have grown, I think there's still capital flowing to of course, promising companies. And I think that's important to see this, that luckily enough, and I'm very happy that this is happening, that capital is still flowing into the right directions. So to summarize, I think we should never waste a good crisis. Of course, this crisis is terrible, but I think we also look from the bright side, what it can bring us in the future, particularly also when I showed you the data and what we have seen in previous crises. So because an economic downside is also a catalyst for entrepreneurship and innovation to blossom. And that's actually what we do as an SSO, right? That's what our role is. That's what our objective is. And I've showed you that a lot of big tech were incepted during the crisis of 2010, 2011. And nowadays we see the digitalization and transformation is on top of mind. We can't travel, so we have to find other ways. You see a blossoming of electronic exchange of payments, right? So we move from cash payments to electronic payments. There are countries in the Nordics where almost 95% of all transactions are done fully electronic, and we see also that in the fintech space, the buy now pay later model. So you order something on the e-commerce platforms today, but you pay after a month or even later. That's almost like consumer financing, consumer lending. That is growing extremely rapidly. I think it is one of the fast growing financing methods in consumer lending. Again, in Sweden, I think 35% of all e-commerce transactions are paid or financed to Klarna, and Klarna is one of the biggest buy now pay later companies. After Afterpay, which is an Australian company, and by the way, both WeChat Finance and from Samsung Pay, and Finance have both taken a share in these two companies. So I think we see the world is really moving into this model as well, and it is digitalization. It is helping consumers from choosing certain products on the web towards the whole process, and even providing them some finance. And that's, I think, the whole digitalization and transformation journey we are in. And I think the whole COVID-19, how terrible it is even more catalyst for that big change. So what do I see as an impact on SSOs? So I put here, because we do a lot of face-to-face, right? And I think the impact for local SSO is low between brackets. I think for international SSOs, I think it is higher. Why do I mean low? When I was running my own programs, of course, we had a lot of international startups. They have to fly in. We have international mentors, international companies. And so everyone has to fly in. That has stopped completely, right? There's no flying, almost no flying possible. A lot of large companies don't even allow the employees to fly either. So that, I think that's why I put here, the impact for face-to-face is quite high. Why low for local? What I see with incubators, SSOs who serve a local market, you can still move around locally, right? You can still drive your car, you can still go around in the city. If there's no strict lockdown, there's still certain things possible. But nevertheless, I think we have to move to a digital environment, right? Or a hybrid environment where we combine face-to-face and digital. And I think for the international accelerators, SSOs, I think for them the question is how to stay relevant, because I see that a lot of local SSOs, they have a lot of opportunities, right? They have already the local environment and suddenly they can go digital. So suddenly they can reach the rest of the globe. So there are many, many opportunities. And very often you see also the local SSOs are very specific, very focused. And for the international ones, how to stay relevant, right? So how can an international accelerator stay relevant compared to locals? So it is so, and that's the move, right? And so I think for all of us, we need to reinvent ourselves, to reinvent ourselves, how to stay relevant for all the actors we serve as an SSO. And so I see we have to go digital. We have the technology, but we have to go digital. The question is, what can we do digital and what can't we do digital? And I think that's very often a mistake people make, because you should not mimic a face-to-face event and put it on digital. We should use digital channels to make an event digital great, right? The best possible event you can do digitally. We go away from the framework we used in face-to-face event, but do it fully digital. And when you do face-to-face, then probably you can do something face-to-face, which you can't do digital, right? I think that's what we see, what hybrids can do, but digital need to be implemented well. So when we look at startups, so the startups, for startups, very important, the whole go-to-market movement. So the business development, the funding, because without funding I can't work, because my runway is limited. So when I can move the go-to-market and business development in a much shorter time frame, I have a longer runway to find investors and to find possible customers. And when we move as an SSO towards a digital platform, this has to be implemented rightly. I already said that. And to do that, I think we need a blend of online bite-sized learnings, right? Collaboration. We need digital tools, we need templates, all of that accessible for the startups to work with, to experiment with, and to bring the business further. And what we use on several occasions, we use MentorJam for that, which is a startup. And actually that Bring is a platform for SSOs to actually digitalize the whole ecosystem. And what's great is startups can be onboarded, that mentors can be onboarded, and that you have your own profiles. You can do matchmaking events. You can do engagement events. You can do presentations. So let's say the whole Zoom, what we use today, is embedded in that as well. You can go to sub rooms together. You can have one-to-one meetings. You can really look each other in the eye, and it's measurable because every activity is logged. You have data of that, and you can run reports, right? So it's also very important to show to your own stakeholders of your own SSO, to show these are the activities we have done, right? So that's, and this is actually not mimicking a face-to-face accelerator program, but even do it better, right? With much more insight. We can also matchmaking, and we can use algorithms that based on on certain data points of the two actors. So a lot is possible in there. And when you, as a startup, and as an international startup, why should I join a digital SSO? This is great because suddenly I can get the benefits of an SSO, but I don't need to travel. I don't have a reallocation cost. I can still focus on my company when I'm a France company, I can still focus on my team in Paris, still build the business there, but on the other hand, also benefit from an SSO in Tunisia, which is of course great. I don't need to go there because the whole platform supports us in what we would normally do. So it is for the limited cost compared to be with a real accelerator, but also for the accelerator SSO, you can onboard much more companies. You have much more reach, right? Because everything is digital. You don't need physical location for people to be. And I can explore new markets. I can reach out to the companies or corporates that are attached to this SSO, and the SSO experts can really help me to export basically my Paris or my France activity into Tunisia, and I'll also exposure to new investors, which I normally would never have been exposed to. So another opportunity for me to get funded for the next round. So a digital SSO, of course, also increase your own organizational effectiveness, right? It gives empowerment to your mentors and investors to connect immediately to startups, right? The startups can do a pitch for a very specific crowd. We can select them easily on the basis of the data they have provided or the interest they have. And of course, we can also empower all the corporate partners within that whole ecosystem. We can make an event that the corporate partner shows, this is what I want. And actually in face-to-face sessions or face-to-face meetings, you not always do it that way, right? And you can be very selective and laser precise who want to do what and who to match with. And I think that will boost up, I think, many of the accelerated processes. And I think a few guiding principles, right? So it is about bit-sized type of learning. So learning what is important for a company at a particular moment. And then also just in time. So you deliver a piece of theory, you deliver a piece of extra knowledge, and they should apply that immediately. It's also about knowledge sharing, right? What I have experienced myself is that founding teams, when you bring founding teams together and they pitch towards each other, they also can provide feedback to each other. So it's not only that the startups will learn, let's use that word, from the SSO staff, but they also learn from each other. And the more they get to know each other, of course, the better they value the total program or the total journey. And that's also very important. And with technical tools, we can still do that. We can still do that engagement with each other. So knowledge sharing is important, and of course put theory into application. And that brings me back to Benjamin Franklin, who lives in the 1700s, and he said, and I love this quote, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I will learn." And I think this is so absolutely true, right? Because it's really about experimental learning and put theories and things you have learned immediately into application. So put immediately into the real world. And that's also what lean startups try to do, right? So go into a certain direction and do constantly that iteration process and change constantly your value proposition up till the moment you think this is right? And that's actually what Benjamin Franklin already told more than 300 years ago. So I think this is just a little bit, I think I always like quotes. So I think this is nice to show. And last time when I was with you guys, I also shared the journey of Ernest Shackleton, who went with a group of people to the South Pole as the first expedition out there. And they put an ad in the local newspaper and said, "Man wanted for a hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success." And I'm a strong believer when we move fully to digital and companies or startups can join multiple digital SSOs, they will benefit for that, and they will increase the likelihood of success because suddenly they can play on different in different markets. So what is then the impact of an SSO, right? So corporates still need to innovate, right? And they want to be exposed to startups. Startups still need to grow, right? They're still looking for ways to grow. They can't do it themselves. They need SSOs to bring that connection, to help them, but also bring the connection to corporates. Investors are constantly looking for deal flow, right? They're constantly looking, okay, what are the new companies on the market? Where can I invest in? And mentors are still seeking for interesting journeys, and we can all bring that still together. So I think the objectives as such has not changed. The mean we deliver it, the mean we bring it is changing, and I think our reach can be increased enormously. So I think this is also, I think, the future, what we do as SSO. So really go into the digital, digital mode, but I think really in the hybrid future. We combine face-to-face, where face-to-face really makes a difference. We implement digital well, whereby digital can really help and to even also harvest opportunities. Because I think a lot of you in the call today, there are a lot of opportunities by using digital tools and really build a digital platform, ecosystem, whereby suddenly you can reach to startups, what I said, to from different areas. With a link to Tunisia. Suddenly you can also reach out to mentors, which were normally never been involved in your own program. So for example, myself, I'm a mentor in an edutech accelerator in Singapore, not far away, but education I think is very important. And on this way I'm involved in that program. And I think that also is for SSOs in Tunisia. You can have mentors on your platform, in your ecosystem, which you never would have got if you were not being a digital accelerator. So I think that's great. So a lot of opportunities there, and much higher reach. So when I combine that all, we see, I think we have many opportunities as local SSOs. I think internationals, we have to see how to stay relevant, right? I think focus is very important. What internationals, of course, they have a large international network already. And when I look at ourselves, we already have access to many international organizations who have an interest to work with startups and to help them to build their business further. But also for locals, I think we need to build that ecosystem, and we can make ourselves extremely relevant for our local ecosystem by reaching out to the rest of the globe, because the opportunities, I think, are endless. And but I think when we reinvent ourselves in a hybrid mode, we also should be very clearly be unique, right? I think the SSOs that have a very focused vertical, a very focused objective, I think they probably can do better when you're much more general SSO, because we already have a lot of general SSOs, which are, let's say, more international, right? And when we look at ourselves again, we have, of course, a huge international footprint, and we already run a hybrid or digital accelerator. So, but I think there's a lot to do there and a lot to achieve, and I think a lot of opportunities. You're absolutely not obsolete in these terms as an SSO. So again, it is always about the traction. It is about the client, your corporate clients, about the credibility you bring to the market. Yeah, and time is always limited, right? Startups doesn't have unlimited time to grow. So, and the better you can do that in your SSO and support them, the more benefit to give to the whole ecosystem. So that's what I want to share with you today. So I think it is good to have, let's say, in a Q&A, some questions or another conversation, dialogue together. And it's probably interesting to put this slide on because I think that probably will trigger certain questions from the audience. So Salma.
Hi again. Thank you, Jules, for this presentation. Thank you for sharing all your experience with that change that's happening in the whole world. So actually, you've put your finger on very different major points or major situations that a lot of people, companies, startups are going through. And let me check some of the questions. So one of the questions is very specific, actually, and You mentioned the importance of data as a catalyst of growth. And so the question is, for an SSO, for the startup support organization, what kind of data we need to gather and we need to use, and how can we take the most of it, of the data they mentioned?
Yeah, this is a broad question. No, I think as an SSO, you have to scout startups, right? You want to scout companies that you think are valuable within your own SSO to meet your own objectives. So what's important in that whole scouting activity is you start, of course, with a very long list, right? The data you need there is which industry are they? What do they do exactly? Is it low tech? Is it high tech? What is the founding team? What's the composition of the founding team? Do they already have funding or not? What's their runway? Do they already have clients? What are their turnovers at the moment? Or do they already have technology developed? Or is it much more an idea? So as an SSO, do we much more support great ideas of great teams? Or do we support companies that already have a technology stack? So all this data, of course, is also important to focus yourself which companies are more suitable to onboard in your own programs. And that's the data, I think, which is important. And of course, you build that database, right? And there are a lot of organizations out there that already gather that for you, right? So I think CBI Insight is one of these companies that had a huge amount of data already of a lot of companies, but there are others as well that do similar things. So how on the base of data, how do you select your own companies? That's one. I think secondly, I think a lot of large organizations in the decision-making process, in their investment decisions, they need underlying data more and more to support the decision-making process. Are we making the right decision on what? So what are the assumptions? Can we support that with data? Does it really mean that when X happens, that Y happens, right? Can you support it with the data? So the data and the analytics of these data is getting more and more important because we get so much data. And I think the difficult task, of course, is how do we capture the data? It's great to have the data, but if we don't capture data rightly, we cannot take the data, consume data, and build a new database. And on the basis of this new database, do certain data analytics, or even further ask machines to do certain analytics, or even further ask machines to do predictions on the basis of these data for the future. So data, of course, is we can speak about hours about it, but data very much supports our business processes and decision-making processes, and that's for every business across the universe. And this is getting more and more important. And if you don't do it yourself, your competitors will do, and probably they will drive and make better decisions compared to yourself. Is that an answer to the question?
Yeah, for a broad question, I think you cover it all.
Yeah. Okay.
Please. So the question is: are interested in the startup bootcamp experience in the last decade, the last cohorts with the COVID. So how have you managed all of this?
Now we ran a program in the middle of COVID. So it started in December. End of December. So we brought the companies into Amsterdam across the world. Was in Jan, and we all know what happens then, right? So the end of the program actually ended fully digital, and we were still learning as well. What does that mean, digital? The demo day. We always end a program with a demo day whereby the startups present themselves to the ecosystem. So normally this is a big event with people invited in an almost theater type of room where the startups present. But suddenly there was a digital event, and of course, and then the question is, how do you make it impactful as well, right? So the competences of pitching rightly, I think that's one of the aspects we spent a lot of time on. So what's our value proposition, what does make us unique as a company, but also how to articulate that all in a sensible, short, meaningful, but also impactful story is difficult, but also very important to do. And of course, when you do go digital and people just look at you at the screen, you still want to make that impact and still want to make people interested to reach out to work with you. So we put even more emphasis on that because of the digital delivery, right? And during the program, suddenly US teams couldn't come back. Teams in other countries were locked down, they couldn't come back. So also a lot of the workshops we did suddenly became digital, or became digital with just a group of the companies, not all of them together, right? So to really tweak it to their own needs. And so when you look at almost 10 different companies we had in the program, at that moment we have to turn almost to a customized program per company, right? Because all they have their own little needs. It's still going well, the transmission? Because I was frozen.
No, I'm receiving you pretty well, actually.
Okay, good.
It has not been interrupted.
So that has changed, and now in the new cohorts we see it is fully digital. So it is a digital program, and what I also said, suddenly we have for companies it is very interesting and appealing because they don't have to reallocate themselves, they don't have to cost for housing or flying tickets to the travel costs to come to here. They can still focus on the business in their headquarters, in their home country, in their home base, but still can achieve the benefits from the program. And I think even better, because now we see the VC meetings we set up. We set up a lot of meetings with VCs and also where the companies pitch to different VCs. Suddenly we have much more VCs during the sessions. So for startup, probably it's even better because their reach, their exposure is much higher than previously, because previously it was a session and the VCs has to physically come to our premises as well. And now it is only, let's say, an hour and a half on screen, and then the people can continue working. So I think we have reached a certain increase in efficiency there as well. And VCs are looking for deal flow. So this is a great way for them to see multiple companies in a much shorter time frame. So I see a lot of benefits of it as well, and I think this will never come back. So I think this is here to stay, right? And probably will do face-to-face meetings when it is possible. But I think there's much more also, I think much more celebration type of sessions. But when you're abroad, probably will not even come there, and that's, I think, is okay, right? We're there to help the companies to grow. And yeah, that's my, I think, my experience a little bit in from different areas. Salma.
Thank you so much. And another question is, do you think that this question is a bit skeptical? So is it possible, do you think that it's possible to create a community and a network and to engage with them with a full digital program?
Yeah, my answer is yes, absolutely. If you use the right technology, you can set up an ecosystem on a platform fully digital.
And what's the right technology?
Yeah, that's important. So what I shared earlier, that's important. Of course, it's always important, right? But you need, of course, you need support from technology there. Otherwise, it will not. It doesn't work with emails or just Zoom invites. You need a platform almost like a WeChat. I think we all know WeChat in China. You go in there and you don't have to leave WeChat. You can find everything there. You can buy groceries. You can book your tickets to the theater. You can meet friends. You can call with friends. You can do your finance. Everything is in that platform. So if you think about it, if you build a platform where startups can show off themselves there. We have mentors that can show and also make very clear what they want to mentor on startups, what type of mentors they are looking for. The algorithms can match, right? And then we can set up automatically, the system can set up sessions whereby people can see each other, like a face-to-face meeting in Zoom. You can do sessions where a corporate says, I'm interested, these are the problems we have, I'm interested in these type of companies. And then the companies can react to that and go back into private rooms to discuss that further. So you can do events whereby investors sneak preview, where the companies show themselves and say, this is the financing size I'm looking for. And then you have VCs or investors that look at this and say, hey, that's an interesting one. And you can immediately follow up in that platform. So when the underlying technology is right, I think there are a lot of opportunities here, and probably even more opportunities when we look back how we did it previously.
So you've already mentioned the Mentor Jam as a platform. Do you have other platforms, or maybe each SSO has to build their own from scratch with its different features, or maybe lots of investment and it's costly?
Yeah, so I think this is so as an SSO, we are also a startup, right? Or a company that has to reinvent ourselves. So that's the same parallel as other companies. So we are an SSO, but we have to reinvent ourselves. Then for every company that needs to reinvent ourselves because our current business model gets obsolete, we have to move into a new business model. The question is, do I develop my own technology to support my new business models, or do I buy? That is the build or buy question. I think you should buy, not build it yourself, because you don't have the skill set and it is much more costly. And a company that's already done that, they can of course divide the total development cost over multiple clients. So I would say buy. And then there are different providers in the market, and I've got how can I say that? Now, this company I just mentioned is a company I think that does this well. Where there are definitely others as well, because this is also a startup crowded community, right? A lot of startups think, hey, this is probably an opportunity for us to go into. And Mentor Jam is already doing this for 2.5 years, 3 years now. And and of course they're also developing further in their process. So it's actually, they are a company they are a startup that also looking for companies to work with, right? And to validate the technology and build on that further and sell it of course to companies. So certainly the SSO is a large corporate that want to innovate and is looking for startup companies that can help them in that journey. So this is what we're good at. So I would not say develop it yourself, buy it. That's a little answer to the question.
Yeah. So we'll advise them to go check on Google to see what are the kind of template products, tools solutions that can help them. Building.
And reach out to me if you want to know more. That's fine. I can help you with that.
Thank you.
Because we also I'm also part of your ecosystem, right? So certainly we collaborate. We should collaborate together as well. So
actually, this program is, I think, is a good proof that we can build and engage with a kind of community, because now we have like kind of a special relationship here, because we have interacted so many times, and it was all fully digital, and then we consider you part now of our ecosystem. Then you know well now the Tunisian ecosystem. So yes, it is possible, but it has its own rules, let me say. So for sure, we need to have the right tool, and we need to use it also on the right way, and to be really as close as we can from the community that we're managing. So sometimes even the tool is perfect, but we need to push for some like connections and relationships to be made. For example, with mentors from one side and the startups on the other side, we need some shake-up events or anything like this to make the connection easier for the first time, and then it will go like more smoothly and naturally. So, but yeah, sure, the tool is a first step to do it. But we can do, I think, in my opinion, we can start with a very easy solution, like, for example, Zoom or Slack or WhatsApp, At first, we can start with that and build from like more iterative way and lean way the tool that will like answer to all our expectation and needs.
No, absolutely. And I think that's also an iterative process, right? You move to that. It's not like think a big bang. But to give two examples, Salma. So I think important for the folks in this call to understand we have never met each other, right? And I think if COVID didn't happen, probably we wouldn't have met each other. So I think due to COVID, we are now together in this call, right? I would say, and we do the engagement fully through Zoom, and indeed we also use WhatsApp. To give you another, I think that's interesting, right? And I think that's also rewarding. To give you another example, I think you all know Ins&Outs Business School from Fontainebleau, and a lot of people go there, and the school has alumni associations in every country, and for the Dutch alumni associations, we have set up a mentor program where alumni of Ins&Outs can become a mentor or a mentee to help each other, basically, right? To help each other to move and to change or whatever you want to do in your career, but also more on the personal front, not only career but also personal, because that's what you make as a human being. But that mentor program in the past, it was a manual program. So we had Excels with questions and people will fill that in. And then people were looking several days how to match and come up to 10 or 15 couples. Now we have just onboarded a company on that. And then mentors and mentees, they leave data points, what they want to be mentored on and what they want to be, what areas they want to be mentor. And the system actually, they match the couples, and that's a matter of an hour. What you would normally spend days on as a team to make the best matches, certainly the system does that. And of course, the question is that as good as we did before? But you see the operational efficiency we achieve by doing that and leaving also the individuals leaving their own data points, and then the system does the matching on these data points. I think that's great, and that's what it brings, right? So it brings, it scales, because suddenly we can even make 100 couples because of the technology. It is extremely scalable, and for the less time required. So I think embracing digital tools, I think, is very important to achieve your objectives, right? And for this program, achieving objectives is to help as many people as possible to be mentored. And I think for an SSO, what's the objective? To help as many startups as possible, to help them in their journey to grow, and make connections with as many valuable individuals or organizations as possible. And that's probably much more to achieve through digitalization than through manual matching, right? So, so from my own experience from different areas, I see this as I think we are in a unique opportunity as well, what we see here at the moment, how digitalization can help our own business models.
Actually, that was my comments on here. I see here a great opportunity for startups or for the SSO that would like to reinvent themselves as a startup, to build a tool that can be like very suitable for the SSOs to grow and to scale. Actually, I'm sure there are a lot of startups working on it, but here is a big opportunity, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are many opportunities.
That's a win for startups here. If you'd like to work on a new solutions. Okay. Another question, actually, on the international level. So, what are the key, in your opinion, what are the key components to work on or to set up for an SSO in order to be relevant and competitive on an international level? So we have today local startup support organizations. They are used to work with Tunisian startups. All the ecosystem in Tunisia is at its baby steps, let me say. It is growing, it's very dynamic, vibrant ecosystem, but still we don't have that big like success stories in in terms of startups or like a huge branding about what we're doing here. So it's more like challenging for an SSO, a local SSO, to be competitive in a larger scale or on an international scale if it's right behind like the startup support, startup bootcamp, for example, references or those big names in acceleration and incubation.
Yeah.
So what should be worked on or implemented, designed in the local startup support organization to be competitive and relevant on an international level?
Yeah. Yeah, this is I think this is a tough question, but nevertheless also very interesting. So, and I already touched that different areas already in my presentation, right? So, I think local SSOs, and let's focus on them. They have, of course, a few things, a few competitive advantage, right? So first, they are local. They know the local environment very well. They know local companies. They really understand the local needs. I think countries like Tunisia, but also other countries, I think diaspora is a very powerful, that's called a powerful network as well, right? A lot of these individuals, they want to bring something back to their own country, right? Because they love their country. I think that's another thing, competitive advantage they have. And I think thirdly, if you as an SSO really focus on a niche in your local environment, I think or a very focused area in your local environment, I think that already makes you unique compared to all the international ones, because the international ones can never have that specific focus, local focus, right? So and I think, and they don't have the diaspora connection as well. So don't try to mimic or, as let's say, the big international accelerators, but I think stay close to yourself. What does make you unique? And I think the uniqueness is that you really understand a specific segment or vertical industry and the needs of that industry specifically for the Tunisian environment. You know the Tunisian investors or people that have an interest to invest, or companies have an interest to invest in new technology that can also improve their own activities. You can reach out to your diaspora, and I think that diaspora, to connect them into your program, you need digital tools for that anyway. So I think that can make, I think. So when we speak about this now, I think what can make local SSOs unique, and you have your own right of existence because your focus, and I think you provide something very specifically with, let's say, the bigger ones, which are much more generic, even though they're fully on certain verticals. You have some other uniqueness.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to here to do a shout out, because we have actually a Tunisian local SSOs. It has started like 3 years ago, and now they have expanded to Morocco. So it is possible, actually. If you have that uniqueness, you have the value proposition that is very clear to your target, and you're delivering actually, and you're making impact, the expansion is possible if you keep it and you push it to its maximum. So a good shout out to OST, Open Startup Tunisia, because they're expanding to Morocco, and it's a huge success for the local ecosystem. And we hope, and our wish is to see more of that kind of programs and ambition to the local SSO, because they are capable. Actually, we have good skills, they have good knowledge of the local ecosystem or similar ecosystem to Tunisia. So all the North African markets and ecosystems, African as well, maybe the MENA also, and actually we have also the skills. We have a lot of skills on the deep tech, so all the hard tech, that we can also like position ourselves for our region, of course, because the competition is very tough.
Yeah, and the competition probably also becomes bigger, right? Because we open up internationally, so it is not a closed community. We all become open ecosystems. But I think even then, as an SSO, you want to show your uniqueness. That also means, like a startup, you have to show credibility, right? And how do you show credibility? With success factors. And how do you understand how successful you are? Is to have the underlying data that support these success factors. So you need to understand, how many mentors do I have? How many active mentors do I have? How many of these active mentors are really now involved into the startups? How of them have invested in startups? So all these data need to be collected, I think, to also showcase why you're so unique and why you're so strong and why you can really make a difference as an SSO. That enables you to move, for example, to Morocco, right? So, and you only get these data when you have an underlying technology that can capture that. On such a way, you can also do the data analytics. So I think not only COVID, but I think also the expansion and make you unique and also show what is the relevancy of yourself as an SSO. You need to have the data, so you need to have platforms to capture all that data. And of course, it's a small different areas. So we have a database of tens of thousands of startups to understand what's happening, not only to understand who they are, but also to understand what are the new areas where startups start, because that shows certain trends.
And maybe also we have to actually to think of new leverages as partnership, international partnership between different SSOs with different ecosystems. So that kind of experience or co-programs between 2 or 3 different actors in different regions in the world can also position the actor, the player on an international level, because you would gain more references and experience on that level. So it can be also great leverage. And maybe now everyone is kind of interested to have that kind of partnerships, even with maybe a more mature ecosystem, or more mature
again, it's collaboration, Salma. It's not competing with each other. It is how can we collaborate together to have more impact together, or increase the cake, right? Instead of try to divide the same cake, increase it for all of ourselves. I think that's important. Absolutely, yeah. And I don't know how that works in Tunisia so much, but I also see SSOs that are focusing much more on talent and entrepreneurship, right? And helping entrepreneurs to grow their business. When I talk about a startup, I always talk about a startup in the sense of a startup that has developed a piece of technology. But there are a lot of companies or founding teams that just have a company, right? They produce something, they build something, and they also need support, right? And we are just focusing on the technology startups. But there are a lot of entrepreneurs that start an enterprise or company with not having technology, right? And they also need support. So I think we also have to be careful when we talk about SSOs. What do we mean? I think it all starts with helping talent, entrepreneurship, bring talent back to the country, to the diaspora, and support them in further build their ideas, right? And if that is technology driven or not, I think that's secondary.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think those were all the questions, because you answered to one question, because the last one was how to scout startups on an international level. So you've talked about that earlier when you said that we have to focus on our target based on our data, and maybe to go there, like to target directly, for example, the diaspora first, and then enlarge with more experience and references.
Yeah. Yeah, but I probably had to give you a little insight for the fintech programs. How do we do that? So we have a lot of contact with let's say, fintech hubs or organizations, for non-for-profit organizations or for profit even, and local fintech companies become members of these associations. So when we do a reach out for a new program, we also do a reach out to them, right, and ask them, what are your companies that do have an interest in to move international, basically, right? So that's also local SSOs, I almost want to say. So it's important to know them, know the individuals, do a reach out, and then also do a reach out to the founders and really explain very carefully. First, of course, understand what they want to achieve, and how you can help them in that, to achieve that. And then, of course, it is they need to be converted into the program, right? And then, so that's and what we did sessions around Europe and the US of day and a half, whereby we saw 20-30 different companies in type of pitch events, and we were discussing with them, and we choose the most interested ones. We're discussing with them if they have an interest to reallocate themselves into Amsterdam, into our fintech and cybersecurity program. And of course, that takes a lot of effort and time, right? And then from these hundreds of companies, you try to move it back to 20, and then to the 10 that were allowed into the program. So it is a whole process, right? A whole funnel process from let's say a huge chunk of companies, and you fine tune it. And we fine tuned it always towards what are the requirements of our partners, our corporate partners. They were looking for certain areas, right? So it was important we're also focusing on these areas. So that's also demand driven. Instead of looking, okay, what are nice companies to have, let's bring them here. No, they should have a purpose to be in a program, because the purpose is that they can be working with your corporate partners, who are looking for companies like them, right? And then you can also, the likelihood that, I don't want to say the promise, but the likelihood that there is an engagement, validation, POCs between the startup and the large company, of course, much bigger when you connect all the bits and pieces together. Right? So the demand, what's required, what are the trends, who are the companies, long list, short list, and then do the matchmaking and the collaboration further. So I think when you talk about how do you do that whole selection process, it's a complex selection process, and that complexity, of course, that stays even when we do it digital.
Yeah, sure.
That doesn't change in the equation. The way you do your reach out, the way you see each other, so the distribution is different, but the objectives are still the same. Yeah, so,
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Joost. So we have reached the end of this session. I really enjoyed so much. It puts us in a different perspective, actually, and to see the COVID maybe as a catalyst of a new change of new. I'm sorry. Yes, I have been. I have been interrupted a bit by
that's very sweet,
minor interruption. So actually, it's a new perspective for SSOs through that COVID, and it might be a catalyst to see us in a global network instead of our local Tunisian ecosystem. And I think it's good to go and seek new opportunities, actually. Any elsewhere, the word is big, so we have to be more ambitious. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the whole health sector, of course, is of course also dramatically disrupted, and of course that's a very logical area to look at. But there are still, I think, the whole energy transition, finance, food, agri, sustainability, that all stays, right? These are still topics which are very important, where we need the necessary innovation. So that hasn't changed. But the way we do that, and what COVID has learned us, I think, at the moment, is that we can do it in a different way, which is probably much more effective. And we have, I think, let's hope everything will settle down in the coming 9 months, right? Then there are lots of opportunities as well, and have probably even more international reach, which can be more beneficial for the own environment as well. Yeah.
So thank you so much. I wish you to have happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you. Enjoy your time with your family for the 2 last weeks, and see you very soon, hopefully.
We do. All right.
Thank you so much.